Good evening, 49er faithful. Welcome to another episode of the live 49ers Mailbag. For those of you that are here for the first time, I will explain how this thing typically works. We have previously submitted questions that have nice, longer, well thought out answers. Those come via Twitter. I send out a tweet in the morning. You guys respond with your 49ers questions, and those get a very robust answer, or at least an answer that is not off of the cuff. And then there is the live aspect of this, which I absolutely love, which is those that are here live in the chat over there, putting your comments in. Hit me with @Rob or @RobShoe prior to the comment, and then let me know what your thoughts are, what your question is for me. I respond to those questions in the chat live off the cuff. You get the unfiltered answers. And I absolutely love this program. So I will be bouncing back and forth in between the previously submitted questions and those that come in live in the chat. See people already here looking at the chat right now, already here. Sean 951 Niners Sneakerhead here on the channel. Bang, bang, Niner Gang. Stivers 209 Football coming in to update us that he is watching Sonic with Jim Carrey, which is important information to have, that's for sure. I haven't seen it. Hope it's good. E. Kim, Sneakerhead here on the channel coming in. Hey, Rob, that John Lynch press conference sounded like a politician giving a speech. How do you know when a politician is lying? Their mouths are moving. Yes, it did have that feel. John Lynch coming in. Hey, no questions about Deebo Samuel, knowing full well he was going to get a lot of questions about Deebo Samuel. Ekim also coming in. This one is interesting. Predicting the future way back when. Ekim, Rob, I did say that Alex Mack looked done and ready to retire after that NFC Championship game. Another hole to fill in this Trent Williams with Mo, Larry, Curley, and Shemp offensive line. But Ekim is not throwing shade at Shemp. He's a fan of Shemp when we're talking about the Three Stooges. Raphael 562 Niners coming in. What's up, Rob? And everyone. Ooh, Connor Maurice with the negativity coming in. We don't want Deebo no more. Connor, I think that's probably a mix. I think that there's a fair amount of 49er faithful like myself that would still like to have Deebo Samuel back. I just don't know whether Deebo wants to be back. That's the big question mark for me. It sounds as if Deebo is done. It sounds like the 49ers are that ex that can't let go of the relationship. Deebo seems to be done. Deebo seems to be moving on. If that's the case, I'm willing to let him go. I don't want anybody here that doesn't want to be there. So if that's the case, I can agree with your sentiment. But I don't know about not wanting him. I want him to want to be a 49er. Louis disagreeing, saying, who's we? Louis apparently is one that does not agree with Connor. All right. I will get back to your questions over there in the chat. As I said, if you want to hit me with a live 49ers question in this mailbag, type in @Rob or @RobShoe so I know you're talking to me. But I'm going to start this off with a previously submitted mailbag question. This came in from Twitter via Rohan. Rohan coming in with a good question. Has center become an immediate need if Alex Mack retires? Or are you confident with the pieces that we have? Admittedly, future center to me was already high on my list. I have the 49ers addressing that as their second or third pick in this draft, even if they don't get any additional picks, even if they don't make any trades during the draft that bring in a little extra draft coin. But Mack retiring would certainly increase the importance of that pick. But I'm not sure I'd jump up to pick 61 again, barring trade scenarios. I would still target the position at pick 93. It seems to be a sweet spot for those interior offensive linemen. There's a glut of them that could be had at 93. I'm still vying for Cole Strange. That is my number one ask for center or guard, future center, depending on which need we're addressing. And that is, again, whether Mack retires or not. I can see him playing as a guard if Mack doesn't retire, taking over the center position next year, or if Mack does retire, taking over the center position this season. Although I admit going to a rookie center has me a little bit nervous. But again, the need for a future center is still there, even if Mack returns for this year. And as far as I'm aware, we don't have any definitive statements as to whether Mack is in or Mack is out. However, I agree with the sentiment that it sounded pretty shady in John Lynch's press conference. It sounded as if we might be hearing from Alex Mack during the draft, as we did from Joe Staley last year, where Alex Mack is simply informing us what the team already knows. And hopefully, the team knowing that means they have a plan in place to replace them. I appreciate that question, Rohan. All right, getting back into the comments here. No way, Jose. Yes, I just realized no bandage today. Yes, we are still on the mend, improving ever so slowly. I have one of the interior stitches that wants to make its way out of the cut, that the little surgical incision, but I won't bore you with those details or gross you out with those details, depending on. This is a football show, though, so I feel like people can put up with a fair amount. All right, let's see what type of Kim coming in to say, Rob, Shemp was incredibly underrated. I have to agree. As far as the Three Stooges go, very good. Jamie Bryant coming in at Rob Shue. How you doing? I'm doing well. It was a good weekend, and then the rain came back in Portland, and that can work some weird things on your psyche to have a sunny couple of days and then just boom, shut it down, dreary, overcast, brings you back inside. That is my reality. Today, I'm feeling a little bit better. Today, it's a mixture of sun and clouds, and that little bit of sunshine is helping me. I appreciate you asking, Jamie. Alan coming in, sneakerhead here on the channel. Rob Shue, how's it going? Not having the greatest of days, but all will be okay soon. Alan, I totally agree with that. Hey, this too shall pass. It's true with things that are going well in your life and those days that you may be struggling with. So, Alan, whatever it is you may be going through, I'll tell you, that is going to pass. Brighter days will come. You can trust me on that. I live my life by that motto. And this actually takes me right into my next question, which was something that is not necessarily a 49er question. It's a two-parter, and the second part is more of a 49er question. But Ev Day is coming in, and I just appreciate it. So he said, two-part question for you today, sir. One, what fuels your relentless optimism both in life and around your fandom of the 49ers? I'll read you the second part, but I'm going to answer that separately. Second part was, what advice or help do you have for fans who have a hard time with this and let their fandom create negative feelings in their lives? So going back to this first part of it, what fuels my relentless optimism both in life and around my fandom for the 49ers? A belief that positivity is greater than its opposite, that positivity comes with it a certain energy that propels us in life, and I would rather align myself towards that energy than the energy that will drain from my being. But I have to be completely honest. I do not always maintain that optimism in my daily life. I attempt to do it while on the stream because that's a fixed amount of time. But doing it 24 hours in a day is basically untenable. I try, but I'm not always successful. Being positive doesn't always mean being constantly happy. I struggle. I have bad days. Sometimes I have several bad days in a row. I have days where I doubt myself. I have days where I'm not good enough. I'm not saying this to bring anybody down or to evoke any sense of sympathy for me, but it feels right. It feels right to share the fact in this case, just in case there's anyone out there that may be feeling the same way, that may be going through something. Usually what brings me back to a positive state of mind is gratitude, making a mental list of the things I should be grateful for in my life, trying to focus most on the important things like the people that I love, the people that I care about, and being grateful for them in my life. When it comes to the 49ers, I just believe in nuanced breakdown of key issues. Like Jimmy Garoppolo's abilities as a quarterback. That's a perfect example. It's very polarizing. there are two very vocal sides that exist where people are yelling at one another that Jimmy's great or Jimmy is trash, right? And just combating with one another. I find both of those opinions to be off of the mark. And that the truth, while less exciting than these two polar opposites, is that Jimmy's somewhere in the middle of those two opinions. Now, that's just an example. I did not mean to start a Jimmy Garoppolo conversation here. But I'm also open to new information when I am formulating opinions and when I have opinions, right? New arguments. There are very few opinions that I have that I'm unwavering on. Most of them can be swayed by a cogent, logical argument using film, stats, or just reason. Just hit me with some solid logic and you can sway my mind. The second part of that question from Ev, what advice or help do I have for fans who have a hard time with this and let their fandom create negative feelings in their lives? I would ask them if they feel that negativity adds to their personal happiness or takes away from it. And if it takes away from your happiness, if your fandom, if your negativity around your fandom takes away from your happiness, why are you allowing that? Why are you participating in that negativity? My opinion is that football should be something that adds joy to your life. That's the way in which I view it. That's what I attempt to incorporate into my life by being focused on football. I remain convicted that your best moments are relative in your life, right? So I try to take some joy even from the painful losses that I've been through because of that relativity. I believe that positivity and negativity within your life, it's the delta. It's the difference between the two that truly gives you perspective on what it means to be happy or what it means to suffer. Meaning that even in your darkest days, you can have a positive takeaway because your happiness is, in fact, going to be relative to those days of struggle. You can't truly understand happiness and fulfillment until you have truly understood struggle and pain. Again, it's the difference between the two. The people who are happiest in life have oftentimes been through some real struggles and pain, and then they understand what that happiness means. I'd say, honestly, I'm more relentlessly kind than I am relentlessly optimistic. But in fairness, I am pretty damn optimistic as well. I just find it to be a better frame of mind. All right, I want to get into your questions here in the chat. Ooh, Jan coming in. Yo, Rob, get those likes up, son. Got to try to get those likes up. Jay Batts coming in at Rob. I think they're just waiting for the draft. If a team looking at quarterbacks doesn't get one, they could trade for Jimmy. If he doesn't get traded during the draft, I see them cutting him shortly after. They may also be waiting until he's fully healthy. They may be waiting until they can cut him without triggering that $7.5 million injury guarantee. And if that's the case, you'll see them release him prior to training camp or any of that. But I think it's possible they keep him into training camp. Once he's healthy, that will be a tricky situation because you don't want practice reps going to Jimmy Garoppolo. But I do believe this could drag out into July. Tom Jensen at Rob. Latest Tony Pauline tweet. Rumors in the league are heating up that Deebo Samuel could be on the move. I'm telling you, I see people predicting that Deebo may stay. I hope that's the case. I hope that the 49ers can work out something with Deebo to where he feels okay coming back to this team. But the very real sense I get from watching Deebo, from his body language, from the limited information he has put out, is that he's very much done with this, that he does not want to be in this negotiation with the San Francisco 49ers, that he wants to be traded. And quite honestly, I'm not sure that I think it's a good idea to have someone on the team who is so motivated by passion, who's checked out, who wants to be with some other organization. So honestly, if that's the way that Deebo feels, I would probably rather recoup some draft picks. If the relationship can be mended, then let's mend that thing. Let's get Deebo back in the building. Let's make him feel wanted again. Sean9519 is sneakerhead here on the channel. At Rob Shoot, Deebo is a diva. Don't pay him and make him eat his $4 million this year. He's too proud to try and sit out because he would lose his money, and his something aren't that big to be irrelevant for a year. Sean is clearly agitated by the Deebo situation. I could see the 49ers playing hardball to some extent. It would be a poor look, I think, to the fan base and to the rest of the league. You could understand the motivation of wanting to draw a clear line in the sand and say, we don't allow people to force our hand. We have contractual control over you, Deebo, and we're going to exert that. I hope it doesn't get to that. That would be real ugly. Chris Royal with the super chat coming in 24 hours, then Vegas bound. Can't wait, my dude. Hey, that is for me as well. I may need to check in to my Southwest flight right now. Look at that. We're going to do this live on the air. Chris, you just reminded me that I need to check in. Let's see. I think my flight is right about this time tomorrow. No, 6:10. 6:10 is when I have to check in. Chris, thank you for the reminder, though. Alan coming in at Rob Shoe. When does your trip to Vegas begin? At 6:10 tomorrow. I hope you have a great time there. Thank you, Alan. I'm looking forward to some good food, some good relaxation. Should be a good time. One Bad Niner coming in with the super chat. Thank you for that. At Rob Shoe. I hate the Rams, but they go for it every year. And us 49ers fans have to settle for John Lynch ducking questions and no major moves when we're so close. I get this sense of frustration from a lot of 49ers fans, and I have it a little bit myself as well. I do believe that the 49ers are still a relevant playoff caliber team, even without the splashy moves this offseason, even in failing to trade Jimmy Garoppolo and getting his $25 million off of the books, even in failing to re-sign Deebo Samuel. Now, all of those things are letdowns in my book, but I still believe the 49ers can compete this year. I still believe that they can patch some of the holes. And if they do let go of Deebo, assuming they get a good haul of picks in return, this draft feels like a good draft to invest in rebuilding. Now, I would rather have Deebo on the roster than the picks, unless Deebo is emotionally checked out from the 49ers, in which case I would take the picks and let him go. Give him his wish in that regard. I agree that with the Rams in the division, it is tough. It is tough not to fear, to have that fear of missing out, to feel like we haven't made the types of swings that the Rams have. However, I don't think that's actually the case this offseason. I think the Rams got worse this offseason, and I do believe that the 49ers have had a reasonably successful offseason. I mean, things could still work out. There's that optimism coming through. They still will trade Jimmy Garoppolo. Come on, believe in it. We will trade Jimmy. Let's will it to happen. Deebo will reconsider, and if not, we'll get the draft picks. I'm telling you, this, I get the frustration. I really do, even with my relentless freaking optimism. Ekim, Rob, all of these goings on with Deebo keep reinforcing that the 49ers will never win another Super Bowl under the York family ownership. Ekim, I'm going to address that at the end of this show. I got your comment, got your email at 49ersmailbag@gmail.com, and we will address that. BK from the Bay, at Rob, trade Deebo to the Jets for 2 first-round picks. That would be phenomenal because their two first-round picks are 4 and 10. If you got 4 and 10 for Deebo, that would be an enormous trade. Enormous. Milwaukee 49er 414, at Rob, does the Deebo situation stem from the botched Jimmy trade? I don't know. I honestly don't know, just in being truthful. Does it prevent the 49ers from signing Deebo? No. However, does the drama around Jimmy Garoppolo and the transition to Trey Lance have something to do with Deebo being dissatisfied with the 49ers? Maybe. Maybe he views that as an unnecessary distraction, but his malcontent, his discontent feels much more personal than that. It really feels like Deebo, his ego took a hit in something, whether it's the negotiations, whether it was the conversation, having dinner with John and Kyle, I don't know. But it feels really personal to him at this point in time. Ellis10 at Rob Shue. We all need balance in life. I'm a diehard 49er fan, but it should never bring down our personal lives. Totally agree. I mean, there are times where the game will bring you down, but I think that it should also lift you up. And I'm not a believer in allowing a single loss to ruin an entire week. Sometimes they're harder to get over than others. But again, I always try to look at the brighter side of the coin. Weird saying to use there. The bright, because there's a bright side and a dim side to the coin. So the bright side is preferred. Bullpup 33 at Rob. Some people just like drama. Just saying. That's true. That is true. Bryant Culp, Sneakerhead here on the channel at Rob. Dude, how many field goals will Robbie Gould make this year? LOL. How many touchbacks will Robbie deliver this year? Not many touchbacks. I can tell you that. Robbie Gould is not a strong-legged kicker. He is an older kicker that is very accurate. But man, that is why there's some frustration remaining from me on the special teams is we still have Mitch Wishnowsky and Robbie Gould, which is going to lead to a lack of touchbacks. Thankfully, we added several guys that are capable of being on those coverage units and making those key tackles. Randon McMahon dropping in to say hello. What's up, Rob? My Between Two Beards co-host. Randon and I are going to be doing a mock draft on tomorrow's program. It will not be at the regularly scheduled time. It will be earlier in the day because of the simple fact that I will be at the airport at 5 p.m. and on a freaking plane at 6. So yes, we have a show tomorrow. Randon and I, we will be doing a mock draft complete with trades, and it is going to be fun. So keep a freaking eye out for that one. Looking for those comments to catch up. David Williams coming in. Hi, Rob. I think Jimmy G trade on Thursday and Deebo trade on Thursday. Well, that would be one where fans would be excited and then not so excited. I'm telling you. Kurt coming in at Rob. Vegas theme. This offseason feels like rolling 0-0 on the roulette table when you're leveraged on red and black. Yes, Jimmy, no Deebo, yuck. That is, all right, so Vegas theme, you are heavily leveraged on red and black, and the double zeros roll up on roulette and clears the table. Yes, that is kind of how this offseason feels right now. It feels a little bit like that. Jaguayo 56, Sneakerhead here on the channel at Rob. I think with uncertainty of Mack, we should try to get a young center like Juergens at 61, or do we get edge or safety? I still believe it may be edge there. I'm going to talk about that with a question coming up right now. Brian Culp at Rob, is this the COVID draft? It is the redoing of the COVID draft. This was the draft that was supposed to happen in 2020. I made plans to go to it in 2020, but it is now happening in Vegas this year. Yes, it is, in fact, the COVID draft, I think. All right, let's get into a previously submitted question here. This one coming in from Dan R. about Raheem Mostert. Why do you think Mostert didn't return? Was it his decision, injury history, or did they let him go, assuming Deebo would continue his wide back role in 2022 and he was not needed? Appreciate the question, Dan. It's hard to say with any precision without any inside information. I did not hear any reports of the 49ers actually offering a deal to Raheem Mostert. So I don't know that there was an offer on the table. But I do wonder if his contract dispute, his injury luck while here with San Francisco, and the unfortunate hate that his family got from a small number of 49ers fans after his injury last year, if those things factored into him looking elsewhere. The opportunity to play for Miami was probably just too sweet for Raheem Mostert. Same system, so he can be wildly successful in it, playing under the boy genius in Mike McDaniel. No state income tax. That's a win. And he can do more surfing there. Not to mention the fact that he still has family in Florida because that's where he hails from. I'm not sure that the 49ers ever really pushed to be in contention with Raheem Mostert. I got the sense, based on that lack of interest, based on the lack of rumors and talking about it, that he was the type of veteran that if he didn't get interest or an offer elsewhere, could have been back, but that just didn't happen. He was a hot commodity because Mike McDaniel knows what he's got in a healthy Raheem Mostert. All right, coming back into the chat to check on your comments here. Brian Culp, at Rob. I'm not saying I want Jimmy G week 1, but I feel like Jimmy G will be here week 1. There's a chance. I heard, I believe it was Butcher Boy saying that he's coming around to the idea of spreading out Jimmy's cap hit, keeping him here as a backup option. I think it's much cleaner if you can take him off the roster. I believe that that is the cleanest path forward, and that's my hope. That is absolutely my hope, that he is not on the roster there. One Bad Niner coming in with the super chat again at Rob Shue. Thankful for your health and your well-being. We need you, Rob. Also, can you please explain the practice squad and why teams are able to pluck players from your team? It's an interesting phenomenon that the practice squad, those members of the practice squad are not members of your team. They are open and can be pilfered by other teams. They can come in and offer them a job. That is intended to be upward mobility for those players that are on the practice squad, meaning they deserve every chance to actually play in the league, not just be on a practice squad. So if an opportunity with another team opens up, they shouldn't be prohibited or penalized for being on the practice squad. Whereas if they were just unrestricted free agents, if they were just sitting out there keeping themselves in good shape, they could be signed off of the street. So I think that's the gist of it, is that teams don't want to penalize a player for being on a practice squad as opposed to being unemployed, because then there would be actual incentives for players not to be on practice squads. If they had a goal of hitting the 53-man roster, then they would forego being on the practice squad, because that would limit them to the one team whose practice squad they were on. Being on a practice squad leaves them open to the entirety of the league, but these new rules allow teams to then protect specific players if they feel they're in a pinch. If they have a risk with, one quarterback being down, let's say they have 3 quarterbacks in their quarterback room and one is down with COVID or something else, they then have the flexibility to protect their practice squad quarterback to bring them up. I know that's an unlikely scenario. Very few teams, if any, are carrying 3 quarterbacks nowadays. Most are hiding that 3rd quarterback on the practice squad. But they don't get pilfered very often because they are most familiar with the systems that they are in. So there still is the highest correlation between practice squad and that actual team they are on the practice squad for. All right, getting back into a couple of other comments I saw in here. Had to go forward to the super chat. You know how that goes. That Niner guy, sneakerhead here on the channel in at Rob Shue. I blame the Yorks. They won't pay the guaranteed money, and I think Deebo was like, that's that. Sad feeling like Lynch, it takes the hits for it. Sad feel like Lynch takes the hits for it. Okay, so I'm sussing that out. You were too exuberant when you typed that out, that Niner guy. But yes, you're blaming the Yorks for not ponying up the guaranteed money. Deebo took offense to not having the guaranteed money in the deal. I think that is a very reasonable assumption. That could be something I would take offense to as well. You asked me to put my body on the line being the running back for your freaking team because all your running backs were hurt, and now you don't want to provide me with guaranteed money in my next contract? Yeah, I could be pissed off about that. I could see that. And then the last part of it being that Lynch is taking the heat for this. If it was York being cheap, or if it was Parag in communicating the cheapness poorly, then that blame should be with them, but it's not. Lynch is the one that has to put up with it, and that is a shame. Ekem, Rob, are you going to be doing a call-in show on Thursday? I'm going to be trying to do that, Ekem. I will be in Vegas, so schedule is going to be all over the place. Kyle coming in, Kyle Pratt. Rob, sorry if I missed it already, but who would you draft to replace Mack, assuming our highest pick is 61? I'm still highest on Cole Strange. I wouldn't take him at 61. I think the sweet spot is somewhere around 75 to 80. I also like Juergens. I would be fine with that. There are a couple of players I would be okay with, but my number one option would be Cole Strange. And again, I think the 75 to 80 range is the sweetest. So trading back, or if you accrue additional picks from some other potential trade that may actually happen, unfortunately. Todd coming in. My man, Rob, I hope we don't trade Deebo, but if he wants to leave, let him leave. I love Deebo, but we don't want to be paying him that much because we got to pay Bosa. Let's go Niners. Trey Lance era, baby. Todd, that is basically my take on it as well. I believe that Deebo, if motivated to be with the 49ers, is a phenomenal player, and I want him here with all my heart. If he doesn't want to be here, which is the true sense that he's putting out there right now, in that case, and that case only, where Deebo does not want to be here definitively, and that relationship cannot be repaired, I think you have to take the picks. Jerome coming in, sneakerhead on the channel at Rob. I still feel that Deebo wanted to be extended right away. Niners said the offer won't be coming until later. He felt disrespected and heard rumors of maybe being lowballed. That certainly could be. He got disrespected in some way. That is the clear message that I take from his interactions with social media, with the limited glimpse that we have into how Deebo feels throughout this entire process. He took offense to something. His ego took a hit. And my guess is that has to do with the negotiations in some way. Whether it was a lack of guaranteed money, whether it was a lack of sense of urgency, something made Deebo feel like he wasn't important to this franchise. And he's the kind of guy, listen, let me put this out there. I am the type of person where if you are in my life, I am ride or die for you. My best friends, my family, I would quite literally die for them. And I hope that that's the case in return. That's what I look for in friendships, in family members, people that have your back 1,000%. That said, if one of those people then clearly demonstrates to me that that's not how they feel about me in the relationship, that they don't have my back, that they're not willing to do things above and beyond in order to help me out or to assist in some way, that could be it for me. I can draw the line. I can say, listen, hey, I thought we had something else. We don't. And now I would rather cut you out of my life, so to speak, because I only have room for people that value me in the way that I value them. And Deebo seems to be that kind of a guy where he was ride or die for the 49ers. And if in those early negotiations, it became clear to him that he's just a number to the 49ers, I could see a situation where that would really piss him off. It would really piss me off. When corporations made me feel like a number, I was done with those corporations. Tim Sloper at Rob, fans need to stop falling for the annual NFL okie doke. Manufactured Deebo drama to draw eyeballs. Lynch isn't setting the precedent of capitulating to the demands of an all-pro under a rookie deal. That's the hard line he could take. I just don't know if it flies anymore in today's current atmosphere of NFL players taking back power, beginning to act a little bit more like NBA players where they realize the power that they have and they are exerting that power. They are choosing to use the leverage that is at their disposal. So a couple of years ago, I would have agreed with you wholeheartedly. I still agree with you to some extent, but I'm not sure. I think that the leverage is changing and Deebo may be able to force his way out if he wants to. Lori coming in just to be kind. Great show, Rob. Thank you, Lori. I genuinely appreciate that. I can use the compliments nowadays. I really can. Spider-Man doing the good deed. Hit them likes. Yes, hey, it is still the offseason. I am still trying to amplify the signal, and I do enjoy when those of you that like the program actually like it, hit the like button. If you don't like it, don't feel obligated to hit any like button. E. Kim, Rob, first problem with this front office was not prioritizing and finding a starting quarterback when they took over in 2017. They did push that to the back burner. I got the reasoning for it, though. It's just things played out in such a way that they missed on so many guys and they didn't actually follow their own initial plan. It just hasn't worked out for the 49ers in how they've gone about attempting to bring in the right quarterback underneath Kyle Shanahan. But I believe they have the right quarterback in Trey Lance. I believe we will see that this season, and those questions will be put to bed. Bryant Culp at Rob, Deebo said the only people who know what's going on is the Niners, his agent, and him. This is just a smokescreen to distract us from Jimmy G still being here. Bryant, I hope so. I hope that he is not pissed off. I hope he is willing to come back and work things out with our team because Deebo is a monster and I want him paired up with Trey Lance. Man, I really do. I just get the feeling that's not going to happen. It's just a feeling, though. It is just a gut feeling. All right, back to a previously submitted question here. This one coming in from, this is Raphael. This one is a style question. I love it. Rob, what's your take on the new 49ers jerseys that were just released yesterday? Raphael coming in with the jersey question. I like them. I do. I really do like them. I love the saloon font. Love saloon font. I love it when it's in the freaking end zones. I love it now that it's on the jerseys. When they put it on during the playoffs, it takes me back to the good old days of Candlestick. The 3 stripes are cool. Like I like them. I like the look of them, but I could take them or leave them a little bit. I'm not attached to them. I will be honest. I have had some second thoughts after the way in which we have apparently treated Deebo to this point. If we do not work it out with him and we end up sending him out, I am not entirely sure that I will be buying a jersey this season. That would be a rarity for me. I would typically pick up a jersey, especially in years where we are, playoff contenders, Super Bowl contenders. But I'm not really thrilled with the way the organization is operating right now. I'm not bashing them. I'm not on the other end of the spectrum saying that it's been an atrocious offseason. No, I think that's an unreasonable take. But I'm not thrilled with the way the offseason has gone. The top 2 priorities were trade Jimmy and re-sign Deebo. Those were top 2. Re-sign Bosa was number 3. We'll see how they do with that one. They haven't done so well on the first 2 so far. I want to see how this thing shakes out. Again, I'm just not overly thrilled with my front office at this point in time. This one comes in from Abe Froman, the Sausage King of Chicago. If you don't know the reference, go watch Ferris Bueller. If you haven't seen Ferris Bueller, what's going on? What is going on in your life that you haven't made time for that classic 80s flick? I'm telling you, the Sausage King of Chicago is in the house. Who is the pick if we stay at 61? My personal favorite? Cole Strange, interior offensive lineman out of Chattanooga. I love Cole Strange, Abe Froman, but not sure I love him at pick 61. If Mack retires, I think they could go center at 61. But ideally, I would trade back 10 to 20 picks and take Cole Strange there while picking up an extra pick. I think the sweet spot for him is in that 75 to 80 range. Maybe I'm wrong. If the big board on the Niners end of it dictates to them that he needs to be taken earlier in order to be had, then I take him earlier. But the information I have puts him in that 75 to 80 range, sort of on the low end of it. So I think it's a safe spot to trade back, accrue a pick, and pick up Cole Strange using, if you gain other picks, using those to address edge, safety, and the other big needs. I still say, my gut still says it's edge rusher at 61 if we don't add any other picks. Somebody in the edge rush class is going to fall, and the 49ers are going to jump at it. But I get this sense that we're going to have more than just the pick at 61 to be talking about. That's why tomorrow's mock draft with Randon is going to be with trades, including the one for Deebo. Because you got to look at that mental exercise of what could you get in that instance where Deebo is traded. Seems like a distinct possibility. All right, back into your comments here in the frickin' chat. All right, let's get to these. The 49ers experience. Here we go. At Rob, should we draft a center first? This Deebo and Jimmy situation is for sure getting old. Get on with it, 49ers. Like I was saying just a moment ago, I wouldn't go center first. Just me saying that. If Mack does in fact retire, then I guess I change a little, but not a whole lot. I still just believe that sweet spot for interior O-line does linger between where I would take Cole at 75 up to that 93 pick where we already are at. So I think you could potentially pick up a solid addition there and then be able to address some other needs as well at 61. Bay Area Sports Report, Jay, coming in. Is there a chance Deebo gets traded tonight? Sure, but I don't know what would motivate that trade. I think the Niners would want to keep it under wraps as long as possible. Jay Tan is torn. Jackhammer, Breezy, and Rob all at the same time? Damn. Hey, I don't blame you if you need to hit. If you need to hit somebody else, I don't blame you. But this is the show to be at. You can watch those other ones not live. This is the one where you want to be live to ask the questions. That Niner guy, at Rob Shoe, if they draft a center first, it's because they trade Deebo and trade down in the first to get Linderbaum. If no trade for Deebo, they cannot draft a center at 61. Value's not there. That's how I see it as well, that the value is not appropriate at that spot. I wouldn't even go Linderbaum if I'm in the first, but I guess that I haven't spent a lot of time looking at him because of where he is and my thought that Mack was going to be back, which doesn't seem correct anymore. Jimmy J, Sneakerhead here on the channel. Hey, Rob, I honestly see all of this as nothing more than trying to amp up the coverage and ratings for what is set to be the most lackluster first round in memory. Deebo isn't going anywhere, in my opinion. I hope that's the case, and I hope Deebo is okay with it. CJ Gray, liar season. Yes, it is. Everybody's lying. No one has a motivation to tell the truth at this point. Keeping them guessing. Jan coming in at Rob, making beer, drinking beer, watching Rob. It's a good day. Jan is living the good life right now. Making beer, drinking beer, watching Rob. How about them apples? Daniel coming in. Daniel Sotelo at Rob Shoe. Do you think that the Jimmy G comment last week about the team needing to pay Deebo was his way of saying, please cut me so you can pay Deebo? I do believe Jimmy would love to be cut at this point in time. It would give him $7.5 million guaranteed, and it would allow him to find a roster. There's a distinct possibility if the Niners play hardball, keep Jimmy on the roster, hoping someone else gets injured, hoping some team comes crawling to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo, there's a chance he is there up until right before week 1, at which point I do believe the 49ers would blink. They may not. They may try and renegotiate him. Maybe he gets to stay with the 49ers. Jimmy probably views the most likely scenario if there is no injury where another team comes calling, that he is then released right before the season. He has no roster to stick on with. He can't pick up an offensive system. That's a worst case scenario for Jimmy. So I do think his motivation is to be released or traded as soon as possible. And whatever he says probably does forward that agenda. Jan, I got to bring this in. Get some Strange. Getting some Strange would be good for the 49ers, and it's good for basically everybody to get a little strange. Alan coming in at Rob Shoe. I love Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Bernstein as the teacher is awesome. Bueller. Yes, I'm telling you. Great movie. Great flick. If you haven't seen it, you need to. Dustin Kohler, the man who will be there in Vegas with me, ready for this draft. Let's go. Dustin, good to see you, my friend. I will see you shortly in Vegas. We are going to have a good time. And the draft will be cool as well. Bullpup 33, Rob, we do not stay put come draft day. We will move up and down. I think we should do a lot of movement. My belief is the Niners should only end up with 7 or 8 players at a maximum. I think 7's the sweet spot. This roster is pretty talented. I want to, if we only have 61, if 61 is the highest pick, I want to move back because I want to accrue picks in rounds 2, 3, and early in round 4. That's the sweet spot in this draft, in my humble opinion. Maximize the number of picks. I would like all 7 to be in that range if possible. If the trade for Deebo happens, they could all fall within that range. You could have a late 1, a couple of 2s, a couple of 3s, and a couple of... It could be fantastic as far as draft goes, but that comes at a cost, quite honestly. But I also would move up. We have 2 picks in the 6th, 3 picks in the 6th, 2 right next to each other as compensatory. And then the last pick in the draft, Mr. Irrelevant, those I would use to move around in the draft. I don't think I would be spending those picks. Chris Royal coming in, Sneakerhead here on the channel. With or without Mack, we should think about J.C. Tretter. Interesting that you would think of JC Tretter even with Mack. I could see JC Tretter being the instant default, and maybe the Niners have already had conversations with he and his agent in saying, hey, listen, if Alex Mack is out the door, we don't want to go to a rookie right away. We would rather bring in a vet. But if you kept Alex Mack, that would seem to be a bit of a glut at the position. Maybe you're thinking that Tretter would come in to play guard or that Mack would slide over. Certainly couldn't hurt to have additional interior offensive line depth. I'm totally with you. If Mack does retire, I would probably go youth if Mack is still with us. I would want to draft the center of the future. Starco Fan 212 Sneakerhead here on the channel. At Rob Shu, who do you think will have a better chance of getting traded, Deebo or Jimmy G? Just purely the chance of getting traded, Deebo, because he's much more sought after. I don't think there are very many trade partners out there for Jimmy G at the moment. Just not much interest. Matt Flores, at Rob, with all the smoke, do you take the proposed 10, 35, and 38 for Deebo? Matt, if we got offered 10, 35, and 38, oh my God, would I jump at that? I mean, I would still hurt to lose Deebo, but not a whole lot. Like 10, 35, and 38 would be phenomenal compensation. I do think 49ers fans, the faithful, myself included, need to wrap our heads around this idea that that is far more than we are likely to get if a Deebo trade does happen. Hopefully it doesn't. Hopefully they can work this out. My gut says that it's past repair. 10, 35, and 38 would blow the Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill deals out of the water as far as trade compensation would go. So, Matt, I would just say scale back the expectations a little bit. We could crush this draft if we added 10, 35, and 38. Crush it. Bullpup 33. Rob, do you still want Jalen Petrie? Yes. If we had 10, 35, and 38, I would take Jalen Petrie at probably 35 just to make sure I didn't miss out on him. 10 is weird to me because I would want to go wide receiver if we had 10, 35, and 38. Again, I don't think we're getting that. But if we get as early as 10, I'd be tempted by one of the 4 top wide receivers. I'll talk about that in a moment. But other than that, I would rather have like 35 and 38. 35 and 38 could be a reasonable amount of trade compensation, which say 69. But if you had 35 and 38, you could get Jalen Petrie, you could get Sky Moore. I think both of those guys would be available. You'd have wide receiver, nickel/safety locked down. Locked down. King's Ransom pointing out that Tretter has ankle issues. He has not missed many games, if that's the case. But that is interesting to call that out. And Chris pointing out that he played left guard with Green Bay. So yes, we could in fact slide him out to that guard position, and it would not be a stretch to do so. All right, getting back into a previously submitted question, then I'll bounce back into the chat. Again, if any of the 200 of you that are watching this right now want to put your question in the chat, please type in at Rob or at Rob Shu so I know you are talking to me with your question. All right, we just got to Abe Froman's question. The Sausage King of Chicago got his question answered. Now, Chop79 is in the house. Chop79 is here. If we trade Deebo for a first-round pick, who would you like the 49ers to target if the pick is between 10 and 20? Now we're getting into some of these answers that I just hinted at in the chat a moment ago. If they stayed put between 10 and 20, I'd target a wide receiver. I specifically like Drake London and Chris Olave in that freaking range. But any of the top 4 receivers would be fine by me. Garrett Wilson, Jameson Williams, Drake London, Chris Olave. Any of those 4, fine by me. I would prefer one of the 2 that I mentioned, Drake London or Chris Olave. Just who I have my eyes set on, and looking at Garrett Wilson, acknowledging that most likely he is higher than that range. But I would say I'd like to trade out of that range. Need more picks in the 2nd and 3rd round. This next one goes into some picks that may be in that freaking range. Tex coming in with this question. If we took the 10 and 38 picks for Deebo, which let me call out, I still think is a big recouping of draft capital. I'm not sure that we're going to get that level of trade. So I'm just going to put that out there. If we took the 10 and 38 picks for Deebo, would you pick at 10 or look to trade back for a later first and another second, edge, O-line, and safety all in the cards then? And we'd still have pick 61. I would ideally trade back. I think the sweet spot is to have 2 early second round picks. That allows the Niners to grab both a wide receiver and an edge rusher or a safety with solid picks. Again, mentioned it just a moment ago, but my ideal goal would be to grab Sky Moore and Jalen Petrie. I would be enthused at that outcome. And then you trade up from 61 ever so slightly to grab a remaining edge. Maybe you can get Drake Jackson, not too far away from 61. Again, I think the Niners only need to bring in 7 or 8 freaking players from this draft. And if they bring in 2 additional picks, they'll have 11. So they've got ammo to move around. Then you trade up from 93 to grab Cole Strange. That's going to take some ammo because you got to go from like 93 probably up to 80, maybe even as high as 75. That's going to take a little bit of ammo. But I still want Marcus Jones and Jelani Woods, who are also in the 3rd round range. So we need more early picks in my book. I'm convinced that the Niners should, again, only walk away from this draft with about 7 drafted players, and the vast majority of those should come in the 2nd, 3rd, and early 4th rounds. I think you move your picks trading back and trading up to sandwich yourself in that range. Vast majority of picks being in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, maybe 1 in the 5th. Who cares about the 6th and the 7th? Save those roster spots for undrafted free agents. I'm a believer that if the Niners get a haul for Deebo, this could be one of those drafts we look back on and say, God damn, we picked up a lot of good players in this one. There's a lot of talent in those rounds. All right, getting back into your live comments here. Got to make sure to hit the live. I see a super chat. Got to get to that. Jaguayo 56. At Rob, love Deebo, but if traded, gets the Jets number 10, 35, 38, then move back from 10 to 16, get extra 2nd round pick. At 16, get Zion Johnson, plug in at right guard. Brunskill moves to center, then trade 38, 61 move up, get edge, get Petrie at 35. I'm telling you, if you get the haul, I have to, again, reset expectations, Jaguayo. I think it would be amazing to get 10, 35, and 38. As painful as it would be to let go of Deebo Samuel, acknowledging that. That draft haul would be absurd. 35 and 38 alone basically equate to what the Raiders gave up for Devontae Adams and what Miami gave up for Tyreek Hill. 10 alone is better than both of those deals. When you combine those 3 picks together, it is almost the equivalent of both the Devontae and the Tyreek Hill trades. So that would be a lot. But yes, with that haul, we would be able to get almost everyone that I want in this freaking draft. And I would be thrilled with that, while again, acknowledging the pain that comes with letting go of Deebo Samuel. Scrolling back a little bit, attempting to get to some of these questions that I missed going forward to that super chat. Starco fan 212, amending an earlier question. At Rob Shue, forgot to add this. Who would have a better chance of getting traded on draft day, Deebo or Jimmy G? Any chance of stays the same? I'm interpreting that addition as, is there a chance that them staying is the same? And so I think Deebo getting traded is more likely. As far as who stays, I also think it's more likely Deebo stays. I think Jimmy is out, right? Eventually it becomes a cut at some point, but they are being stubborn. That one seems like a certainty to me. Deebo, there's a sliver of hope that he is with the 49ers, but it feels like a sliver. The 49ers experience coming in, Sneakerhead here on the channel. At Rob, with Trey at quarterback, Kittle will have another great season like previous years, and Brandon Ayuk will be the breakout player. I see Bosa being the top defensive end in the league. Our team is very loaded. The 49ers experience, I'm with you on this. So with you on this. Man, that would be, I do think that this team is still capable of making a lot of noise. Randall Riley, it's going to be a 10, 35, and a 2nd round next year at a minimum. Randall, I really hope you are right about that. I really hope you're right about that. Alan, Rob Shue, what about Christian Watson if the Niners got 35 and 38 from the Jets? I do like Christian Watson. He's just slightly lower on my list than a couple of others. I would still be thrilled with a pick. And I think in that range, in the 35 to 38 range, would be good value for Christian Watson there. I'm not sure he does make it out of the first round. One bad Niner, Rob Shue. Is it time to fire Lynch and trade Shanahan for Sean Payton and whoever for GM? No, it's not. But I will talk about any heat that may be felt. I'm telling you, at least a little bit of heat. We got, I can't pronounce the name because there's Euro symbols in there, but I think it's Joe. But I'll answer that in just a second. I see there is a super chat that came in. Got to get to that. Jaguayo super chat is there. Got to get Jerome coming in with the super chat. Everyone's thinking a Jets trade for Deebo. Who's your dark horse team to trade? Maybe the Niners get a player back. I mean, dark horse trade, you could still see a scenario where the 49ers try to get creative in packaging Deebo and Jimmy G together. Carolina would seem like a fit there. There's some interesting trades back and forth. I don't love the players that the 49ers most likely would need to take in return to get that trade done with Carolina. As far as other dark horse teams, I mean, I would say Miami, but I just don't think they have the draft capital to get it done. But certainly you would think Mike McDaniel would love to get Deebo on his team. The Packers are certainly interested. I don't know that I believe the Niners would actually be willing to send him to the Packers. That's the problem I see with that potential dark horse. I would look for dark horses to arise out of the AFC. Milwaukee 49er 414 at Rob. Out of the 7 players, what are the must-need positions? What other must-need positions do the 49ers need? All right, so my goal would be wide receiver, speed wide receiver, running back. These are in no order. These are just me trying to remember all of them. Wide receiver, speed wide receiver, running back are 3 that I believe they should fill. Interior offensive line, future center / current center, depending on what happens. Edge rusher, safety. And what am I neglecting out of that? Oh, tight end, number 2 tight end. Those are the 7. And then if I'm adding an 8th to that, it's probably going to be someone who can contribute significantly on special teams. So that's probably going to be a cornerback, a defensive back of some sort, corner or safety, or a linebacker, someone who is flexible enough to play a gunner or coverage unit on special teams, or someone like Marcus Jones, who adds return ability and is a nickel corner. That could be that 8th player as well. I definitely have too many players I want in the 2nd and 3rd round. It is going to be difficult to get them all. Christopher Keith coming in at Rob Shue. I think people are drinking the wrong Kool-Aid. They need to get Christian Watson. Maybe I'm drinking the wrong Kool-Aid is what Christopher is saying. They need to get Christian Watson. Watson on one side and Brandon Ayuk on the other, and Kittle in the middle. Can't go wrong. Christopher, I would not be upset. With Christian Watson. Joey Nichols, what's up, Rob? What's up, Joey? The 49ers experience. Rob, did you see the running back with a 4.040? It seemed 4.040. I seen it slowed up and it crossed around the 4.0 mark. That's fast AF. I did not see that. A 4 flat 40? Where did this happen? That's wild. Innovative Energy, Sneakerhead here on the channel at Rob. Tony Pauline, beat writer for the Jets, had Trey Wingo on his draft show just now and reported Deebo to the Jets for pick 10, ironing out the details as we speak. I have not heard anything about that, but it wouldn't shock me. I mean, that seems like about the right compensation. 10 and something, because it's got to be more than one pick. It has to feel like a haul, but the value can't be much more than 10. And the Jets seem like a likely trade scenario. Manuel coming in. I'm hearing the Browns in the mix. That would be an interesting one. Anything in the AFC feels like a dark horse that could be. Joey's listening to Brad Graham. At Rob, Burns and Moore for Deebo and Jimmy. I'd be okay with that move. I really would. Jared Combs at Rob. Green Bay and Kansas City had no leverage and had to accept their offers. If Adams considered anyone besides Oakland, they get multiple ones and more. Hill has $50 million earned, wasn't coming in without a contract. It could be. I'm not as familiar with their situations as I am with Deebo's, so I can't speak to the leverage that the team or the individual have. I would think that market, that trade value was about right, though. I don't think we should expect a whole hell of a lot more for Deebo. Crazy 49 at Rob. Do you really think we will be on the clock in the first round in a trade for Deebo? I really do believe that the trade for Deebo is more likely to happen than unlikely to happen. So I think it's greater than a 50% chance we do have a pick in the first round. Tom Jensen, sneakerhead here on the channel. At Rob, if the Niners get 10, in my opinion, they will stay there. Top 10 is too valuable a pick to drop down. Fans want interior offensive line, but Niners, in my opinion, say we have to replace Deebo first and take Jameson Williams. I would be okay with that pick. It would be unfortunate for Jameson to forever be compared to Deebo Samuel for the rest of his career. That's unfair, but that's the nature of the game. Official BNA Music 88 at Rob. I wonder if Deebo was fed up with having to prop up Jimmy, only for him not to be given his credit for carrying the team, but not given the respect via the payday. I get the sense in the interactions between Jimmy and Deebo that they got a good relationship. So I don't think there's going to be much animosity between Deebo looking at Jimmy. He could be frustrated with the fact that Jimmy being on the freaking roster prevents him from getting his deal. That might be frustrating, but I doubt he takes that frustration out on Jimmy. I doubt he directs it at Jimmy. And quite honestly, it was him propping up Jimmy that produced such a phenomenal season, right? They were a pretty good marriage of skill sets. T Breezy coming in. Rob, what's your take on Georgia running back James Cook? He's one of the most versatile running backs, will be great in our offense. We were thin at running back. That's why Deebo was asked to play running back. I do think we need to invest in running back. I would prefer a running back that can catch passes out of the backfield. I'd like to bump Jermichael Hasty back down onto the practice squad. That would be my goal. All right, one more, and then I'm going back over to the previously submitted questions, and then I'll be back into the chat to close this thing out. Jeremy coming in. Rob, 1, can you give me some examples of requested trades with bad vibes like this that got worked out in the end? 2, we fly Alaska out of PDX, not Southwest. Yes, we definitely fly Alaska far more often than Southwest. But when you got to have a refundable ticket, there's nothing like Southwest. So that was the choice. I go oftentimes with direct flights and cheapest. That is how I work my math. But yes, in PDX, we do need to fly much more Alaska. And it is better in that way. Sometimes you can get upgraded to first class, even if you're, slumming it. It's pretty good. All right. So examples of trades that got this nasty? No, that's why I believe that it doesn't get worked out. I cannot, off the top of my head, think of another situation that got this ugly and then got worked out. I mean, the Kittle situation supposedly got ugly with his agent, but not with Kittle. I don't think he took it personally. His agent said it was an atrocious first offer. I've seen ones where the player is then held against their will and they, use contractual leverage to hold them, but it's not a pretty situation. Bullpup 33. Rob, Chris Sims has Christian Watson as the number 2 receiver and Alec Pierce as number 3. Do we draft a guy with ACL issues? The Niners have proven a willingness to, at times, draft people with injury histories. Last year, they got away from it. I'm not sure it will dictate their strategy as much this year, but I hope the 49ers still are prudent in avoiding injury histories. Joseph 559. Rob, apparently there's breaking news within the hour via Jets Space. Hey, maybe it's real. Maybe there's going to be some breaking news tonight. If there is, I will be back on this frickin' channel. Kelts Chronicles. Rob, could this be our Herschel Walker moment with Deebo? The Cowboys turned that trade into 3 Super Bowl wins. If we get a gluttony of picks, In this draft, in the second, third, and fourth rounds, yes, I think it could be that type of an experience for the 49ers. There's a lot of players I really, really like in that range. And if we can maximize picks in that range, it's going to be sweet. All right. Again, I think this is Joe who comes in with the weird symbols, but I was able to copy and paste the symbols so you can look at the symbols yourself and decide how you want to pronounce it. But the rest of his Twitter handle was, in fact, Joe. So Joe comes in to say, I know we can't predict the future. He actually started by saying, Bobby Shoes, I know we can't predict the future and yada, yada, but say Les Snead and LA do better again when it counts. Are John, Kyle, and penny pinching Parag on the start of the hot seat after missing on Jimmy G's trade and the Deebo situations? Joe, I will say they should be at the beginning of the hot seat situation. If the 49ers have to trade Deebo and release Jimmy G or keep him on the roster, then the front office would have failed at their two most pressing offseason goals. That has to count against them. I'm not saying that you have to fire anybody. I wouldn't fire anybody, but it has to count against them. Those were your top two priorities, and you're talking about failing at both of them. Seems to me that Parag is untouchable for whatever reason, but who really knows unless you talk to Jed York on a regular basis. Kyle has less to do with these misses, so I do not believe he should be on the hot seat for this scenario. My guess is that John Lynch would start to regret not taking the Amazon job if both of those things happen in that way. His seat could get a little bit warm, especially with Adam Peters waiting in the wings to take over. Before some other franchise poaches him away to be their GM, I would rather have Adam Peters step up to that role anyway. So it wouldn't be the end of the world in my book. I like John Lynch. But someone's got to answer for what I do feel is a little bit of ineptitude to this point. It can still be saved, and my opinion can still be changed. But as of right now, I feel as if the front office has been inept in the way in which they've handled those two situations, specifically those two situations. All right, this one comes in from E. Kim. He is throwing shots. I am going to read the original statements here. There was no question. E. Kim came in firing here with statements, but then I'm going to respond to the statements. I have summarized the statements on the screen. So what you see here is not the actual text. I will read out the actual statements here. This front office has had a terrible offseason. They know Jimmy has no trade value and have no willingness to pay Deebo when Jimmy had the ball taken out of his hands. This front office and ownership reminds me of politicians. They are lying when their lips are moving. I'm not expecting any more Super Bowl victories with the York family and this front office. Signed sincerely, E. Kim. I love the passion, first and foremost, E. Kim. It does seem like a very extreme view. We were a few plays away from a Super Bowl victory in 2019 and a few plays away from another Super Bowl appearance last year. It seems fair to say that they can do that again. And with a bit of luck or improved quarterback play, could get over that hump. That seems like a reasonable stretch of the imagination to me. But I do agree that there are things about the York family and the front office that deserve some criticism. No doubt about that. York seems to be willing to write the checks, and that certainly does matter. But, simply because he's written the checks and he's gotten out of the way a lot more over the last few years, and I give him credit for that, does not make him the ideal owner. I still think he could improve in that book. The front office just seems too slow to react to changes, stuck in their ways when it comes to contract negotiations, hence the Deebo situation. Holding on to the value for Jimmy when the market for quarterbacks was crashing down all around them. Even the tightness with which they seem to have approached this offseason is mildly frustrating for me. I still believe that the 49ers will compete for the playoffs, so I can't get too mad. But I believe they could be legit contenders with just a few additional moves that they seem unwilling to make at this point. So I am frustrated, but not to the point of being mad and believing that we can't win a Super Bowl with this organization. I appreciate the comment, though, E. Kim. Rohan coming back in with this one. If Mack retires, if the 49ers do indeed trade Deebo Samuel, is wide receiver a priority with their first pick? It is a priority, I'm not sure it has to be their first pick. The 49ers could go into next season with Brandon Ayuk and George Kittle as potential 1,000-yard pass catchers, receivers for Brandon Ayuk. If they can get that level of production from those two and have a stellar run game, do they really need another number one wide receiver? Probably not. It couldn't hurt, but I'd say that wide receiver becomes a big need, and one they should address early, but not at the expense of going best player available. So what I mean by that is, if you have a clear-cut situation where best player available is a non-wide receiver, I'm going with that non-wide receiver. I believe that you can come back around to wide receiver. If you've got them at the same tier, then I'm going position of need, right? I would always rather have best player available unless I have an extreme position of need, or if those two players that are both best available, one is at a position of need over the other, then I obviously go with the position of need. I don't think you have to force the wide receiver pick. If they get that 10 spot, I do believe they go wide receiver there. It just seems like a sweet spot to get one of the elite wide receivers in this class. And if you're attempting to replace Deebo's production, an elite wide receiver could help. If they trade back, it feels that they could go any number of routes in, leaning into edge rusher first, going wide receiver second, maybe going safety first, wide receiver second. If they get out of that 10 spot, if a trade does happen, if they move back, that's where I could see them playing around a little bit more. If they get the 10 for Deebo and they stay at 10, that feels like, wide receiver first. All right, getting back into your live comments now. Ooh, we got someone who's got to be blocked. Webcam chats KXYZ. Block that user, and it gave me some sort of freaking spam alert. Get it out of here. All right, Kevin, Sneakerhead here on the channel, coming in with a super chat. At Rob Shoe, have a beer on me in Vegas. I appreciate that, Kevin. I absolutely do. It just so happens I don't drink, but I will have a snack on you, good sir, and I much appreciate it. Maybe I will put $10 on Red 21 in memory of Frank Gore, and maybe I'll turn that 10 into 20 and that 20 into 40, and then I'll go get a meal on that. But Kevin, thank you very much. I really do appreciate that. All right, we got another super chat, and then I'll be back into your comments. Jordan coming in. Could we see Jimmy used to move up in the draft? 61 and Jimmy for 20. I don't think Jimmy has that kind of value. I think 61 and Jimmy might get you up to like 53. I don't know who has 53. I just, at this point in time, it's wild, the lack of value that exists. It has to be the exact right situation in order to get Jimmy Garoppolo off of the books via a trade. And unless Carolina is really just posturing, it doesn't feel like they really are in the market or heavily in the market, that they may just go in the draft. Mr. Amazing coming in at Rob. There needs to be a petition going around to fire Shanahan and Lynch. LOL. I'm just saying. Mr. Amazing, I would not sign it. I wouldn't sign it. It to me, that would be too big of a reaction to this. Am I irritated? Yes. Not with Coach Shanahan, more so with the front office, Parag and John Lynch. And, I direct some of that at Jed. But no, I have no animosity towards Kyle Shanahan and the way these things are playing out. Crazy 49 at Rob. What do you see Deebo's worth? Honestly, I see him at about 20 million a year. If he ain't happy and wants to move on, we got to move on. I see it higher than that. I would probably, initially, I thought it was going to be in the 21 range. I would probably go up as high as 23 or 24. I would try to keep Deebo Samuel. Again, not if he is set on leaving. I just think that's a mistake to try and keep someone against their will. But I also get, from a business standpoint, setting a precedent and saying we don't allow players to dictate when and where they sign contracts when they're under contract. Tom Bragg, I agree with you, Rob. Adam Peters would make such a much better GM. We really need a strong safety. What are they waiting for? They apparently waiting for the draft. I agree. I would not let Adam Peters out of this frickin' building. One bad Niner at Rob Shoe. Let's not forget where we were before John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. Important note. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt for one more year. If not, time to go and bring Eddie DeBartolo back, please. Hey, Eddie D back in the building would be phenomenal. One more year, and I could be out on John Lynch, not on Kyle Shanahan. It would take more than one poor year for me to be out on Kyle Shanahan. Ekim, Rob, if trading Deebo gets picks back, I don't see us capitalizing on those picks that Jimmy Johnson did with the Cowboys. Why not? We can make good picks. We can make good picks. Jared Combs coming in. Rob, I firmly believe SF still has a top 5 roster. That should only improve with Trey and the money he frees up. Complaining about the front office because of a trade request in April seems really short-sighted. So I agree with the first half of your sentiment there, Jared. I agree that SF still has a top 5 roster. I agree that that we should see improvement from Trey Lance being in there and that there's optimism for this season. I do not see that as mutually exclusive from being able to criticize the front office about the moves that they have been unable to make. Again, their top 2 priorities, trade Jimmy Garoppolo and extend Deebo Samuel. So far, they have not been successful with either one of them. I do not petition for them to be fired. I do think it is fair to criticize. I'm not ready to move on from John Lynch because of the way this is played out, but I am ready to say to him, I'm not thrilled with the way in which you have negotiated the start of this offseason. You may still redeem yourself. And I agree. It's only April. We've got the draft to get excited about. We've got more free agents that we may sign potentially after that May 10th deadline. And potentially we get the deal done with Deebo. Potentially we trade Jimmy. So many things could change. So my opinion is not set in stone. But what I will say is to this point, it seems very fair to criticize this front office in how they have gone about the offseason to this point. Official BNA Music 88. Rob, you don't drink after this offseason? True strength. That was funny. That was funny. I appreciate you bringing that in. Revenge with the super chat. Tony Pauline, expect Deebo to be traded for the 10th. That's the rumor. Came out a little bit ago. That will be interesting. I mean, the 10 is good value. I heard Tom earlier on the comments saying that he believes the Niners will stay put there, grab a wide receiver, one of the tops in the class. You could get a lot trading back from 10 as well. When I look at trading back from 10 in mock draft scenarios, I can accrue all the picks needed to get the 7 players that I really covet in this draft. TB12Y. If we get number 10, the goal should be to trade back to the 20s for Linderbaum and a mid-second for Breece Hall. Time for an elite running back so wide receivers can be wide receivers. That is not a plan I would put into place, but I like it regardless. I mean, that would be intriguing to get the top center in the draft and one of, if not the top running backs in the draft. I just don't know that there's the value in expending first-round picks on running backs at this point in time. But within Shanahan's offense, that could be extremely exciting. And certainly locking down the center position would have extreme value. Appreciate that, TB12Y. All right, getting to the last previously submitted comment question and then getting back into the chat to finish out on your comments. Here we go. Dan coming in. If Mack retires and the Niners want to go after a free agent center like Tretter, can we afford him? Or would we need to restructure more contracts to create cap space? No, we cannot afford him as it stands right now. The 49ers are one of the teams with the least amount of cap space. They may actually be the team with the least amount of cap space at this precise moment in time. Jimmy is the clearest way to clean up the books, right? But he's not the only way. Yes, just wiping his $25 million off the books when they are able to trade or release him after his injury is healed, after his surgery has healed, would be the cleanest way to do it. But it's not the only way. The 49ers could restructure contracts. Jimmy Ward comes to mind. However, the 49ers not doing that to this point, not giving Jimmy Ward an extension, seems to signal that that's not something they would like to do. But they could also release a player if they believe that Samson Ebukam's performance didn't meet his price tag at the end of last season. He could be a target. They could clear several million by getting him off the books. So there are options. But again, the cleanest and best way to free up that cap space, free Jimmy G. Free the man. Let him go find his new team. All right, I'm closing out in your comments. Bullpup with the interesting piece of trivia, if true. I can't confirm it off the top of my head, but he says, at Rob, Breece Hall is related to Roger Craig. Can he do the high knees? Can he do the high knees? E. Kim, Rob, I don't trust Kyle since he is shown to lose the big games. He's shown to lose the big games more than winning them. Pressure can either burst pipes or create diamonds. Very true. I do believe people can learn from those experiences, though. I agree Kyle Shanahan faded in those moments, acted irrationally at times in those high-pressure moments. And that could be a concerning trend that he may never get corrected. However, people do learn, people do grow, and time and experience in those moments will make him more comfortable. I relate it always to playing cards. When I first push my chips into the middle of the table, it doesn't matter if I'm playing for $20 or if the pot is 1,000, right? I get that rush and my heart's beating fast and it's hard for me to make. But later on in the game, I calm down and my nerves calm. And then I can push all the chips into the middle of the table, not blink an eye. I believe that's true for most humans, that they tend to tighten up in those moments, but they can learn from that. That's my hope for Kyle Shanahan. Dirk Pippen talking about poker. This poker game ain't over. We have one card left. Jeremy coming in. Jeremy Chrisman at Rob. How much of Jimmy's issue is his contract price? I.e., if he was a $15 million a year player, would there be more suitors? Jeremy, I think absolutely. A good deal of it is his contract, but the other piece has to be that surgery. Getting the surgery when he did made it very tough to trade him. Teams wanted him to be healthy. There were other options available that they didn't need to wait on for cheap prices, and the Niners, apparently, it would seem, did not slash their prices the way in which other teams did. When you could have Matt Ryan for a freaking third, if the Niners are still pushing for 2 second-rounders, that move makes sense to me. Matt Flores, Rob, if we trade Deebo for any draft package, are we closer to rebuild or contend in 2022? We are contenders no matter what in 2022. The only thing that forces us into a rebuild is if Trey Lance isn't that guy. I'm knocking on wood because I believe Trey Lance is that guy. I believe Trey Lance is going to propel the 49ers further than Jimmy Garoppolo was able to take them. So yes, I believe that we are still contenders, not pretenders, not rebuild, but contending. Alan at Rob Shoe, great show, my man. Hit that like button like Gore hit the hole, and now his boxing opponents, or maybe as his boxing opponents have hit him. Gore maybe should have stayed out of boxing. I love Frank Gore, have his jersey hanging right here on the wall. It pained me to see some of those images that came out of him taking a little bit of a beating there. Jan coming in to say Andy Reid took a long time to get a ring. Amen to that. You cannot fire Kyle at this point. The talk of firing Kyle is a bit crazy. Speaking of crazy 49, Rob, do you think us getting Jets' 10th pick for Deebo is all we get, or will there be more of a haul? I see us getting more than just the 10th. I think there has to be multiple picks, but it won't be a substantial additional pick. It needs to feel like a king's ransom without actually being a king's ransom, because the Jets aren't going to want to give up far more than other teams gave up for Devontae Adams or Tyreek Hill, understanding that those players may have had leverage to force those trades. The young Montana, LOL, Rob is a savage. I appreciate that. I don't know what I did that caused you to say that when you did, but I like being referred to as a savage. Lorenzo at Rob, if the Jets did make an offer, how come literally no one touches that 4th pick? Isn't Deebo worth that 4th and the 10th? Talk to me. Lorenzo, he's not, unfortunately. I mean, he is to us. He is in my heart, and he is a phenomenal player. I would love to get 2 first-rounders, but that is an insane amount of draft compensation. The 4th and the 10th, you got to go look at the trade value chart that exists for the NFL draft. There's a couple of them. There's the original Jimmy Johnson one, and then a later one that I think is done by Rich Hill. But both of them show you just how valuable those top 10 picks become. It's astronomical compared to other picks within the draft. 4 and 10 would be an enormous haul to bring in. Dirk Pippen coming in, sneakerhead here on the channel, longtime friend as well. Enjoy Vegas. Put it all on 24. You know that I will, Dirk. You know that there will be heavy wagers placed on 24. As much as I avoid playing roulette in general, because I do prefer rolling the dice. I like craps, but I will be placing some on 24. Thank you, Dirk. Much appreciated. The young Montana clarifying, I was referring to the Gore like button comment. Yeah, that was savage. But I do love me some Frank Gore. It wasn't a shot, but it was me being real. All right, Green Empire Lawn Care coming in. Jets fan here. 10 is the most we'd be willing. Hey, 10 is a lot. 10 is a fair price. It doesn't seem like a lot because it's just one pick. But I understand if the Jets hold firm there, why they would, because the trade value of the 10th pick is appropriate when you look at other trade deals that have gotten done. If I were in the Jets' shoes, I would not be giving up much more than that. You'd try to package a couple later round picks just to make it feel like a bundle. But I agree, the true value, if it happens, is going to be there in that number 10 pick. It's hard to dispute it. This was a phenomenal show. I greatly appreciate all of your energy in the chat. For those 215 still watching, if you haven't hit the like button, please consider doing that on your way out. Subscribe to the channel. Turn on your YouTube notifications. Turn on the notifications for the channel. Know when I'm going live so you can always tune in. I appreciate the interaction that happens here, and that interaction cannot happen without all of you. So thank you for that. I will be back on with Random McMahon tomorrow for Between Two Beards. We will be going with the mock draft, including potential Deebo trade scenario. It's going to be a dope show. The time is not locked down yet. So go ahead and follow me on Twitter. Man, I did not even put up my freaking brand the entire time. You didn't even know where to follow me on Twitter? There it is. You can follow me on Twitter at The Left Shoe to find out when I'll be live tomorrow. But until then, cheers, 49er faithful.